Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's European Context panel, To the Right of the Far Right, Agendas and Appeals. I would like to thank our three speakers, Stephen Forti, Karolina Zbigniewska, and Nina Horacek, for accepting our invitation. European Context is a series of panels and interviews organized jointly by Vienna-based organizations Presseclub Concordia and Forum Journalismus and Medien, and generously supported by the Erste Foundation. My name is Mirjana Tomic, and I curate and moderate the European Context events. The choice of today's topic has been shaped by a series of recent developments that seem to point in the same direction. The radicalization of the so-called traditional far-right parties, such as Austria's FPÖ and German AfD, alongside the mainstreaming of radical right political discourse. One striking example is the concept of remigration. In just 3 years, the term has moved from the political fringes into mainstream debate. In November 2023, AfD politicians, party aides, and neo-Nazi activists attended a secret meeting in Potsdam, Germany, where Austrian former neo-Nazi and current identitarian leader Martin Sellner presented his proposal for remigration. The revelation shocked the public opinion. News of the meeting triggered mass demonstrations across Germany. Yet, in May of this year, 2026, a remigration summit was held in Portugal, attracting more than 500 participants from across Europe. Mainstream media gathered outside the venue, but were denied access to the conference itself. Another recent development occurred in June 2026. Italian general and member of the European Parliament, Roberto Vannacci, launched a new political party, Futuro Nazionale. This new party is to the right of Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. In the same month, Austria's Freedom Party celebrated its 70th anniversary at the Vienna Hofburg Palace. Among the speakers were German AfD leader Alice Weidel, Hungarian former Prime Minister Viktor Orban, and Dutch far-right leader Geert Wilders. According to current opinion polls, both the AfD in Germany and FPÖ in Austria are in a very strong electoral position. What interests me most today is the appeal of the parties that position themselves, or groups, further to the right of the established far right. What do they offer that the mainstream far right does not? Do established far right parties moderate once they enter government, thereby creating political space for even more radical actors? What are the key dividing lines? Migration, feminism, anti-Semitism, LGBTQ rights, climate policy, Russia's war against Ukraine, relations with Russia, the European Union. Are there still red lines regarding what can be said or promoted in public discourse? Are those boundaries different across Europe? Is there a difference with what can be said in Spain or Italy compared with Poland or Austria? I believe that understanding the local context is essential, and our three speakers will explore these questions from different geographical perspectives. Let me shortly introduce them, and we start. Stephen Forti is an Italian historian and author. He teaches contemporary history at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. His research focuses on fascism, populism, nationalism, and contemporary far right. He has written numerous books on the far right and proposed some solutions how to fight it. Stephen will cover both Italy and Spain because he covers both countries. Karolina Zbigniewska is editor-in-chief of Focus Europe in Poland, a lecturer and researcher at the University of Warsaw and research fellow at the Central European Democracy Institute. Her academic work focuses on populism and political communication. She's based in Warsaw. And finally, but very important, Nina Horacek is a Austrian political scientist, author, and chief reporter at the Austrian weekly Falter. She has spent almost 20 years researching and reporting on the rise of the far right extremism in Austria and Europe, with a particular focus on the Freedom Party. She received numerous awards for her books and journalism. The format of the discussion is as follows. I will have a 35-minute conversation with our speakers, and then we open the floor to live questions from the audience. And just one clarification, I would like to clarify one point of terminology. I will use the term traditional far right to refer to parties such as FPÖ, Fratelli d'Italia, AfD, and Poland's Law and Justice, the parties that have long been described as belonging to the far right. By radical right, I will refer to actors such as identitarian movement or Konfederacja. That said, the distinction between these categories is becoming increasingly blurred. Let us start with Stephen. The international community often portrays Giorgia Meloni as pragmatic, cooperative, and relatively moderate. Many Italian observers argue that her government has pursued a radical agenda domestically. So why is there a need for a new far-right party that was founded several weeks ago? It appears more radical, and please explain to us was there a need? Who are the voters? And who does General Vannacci, who is also a European parliamentarian, try to attract? Please, go ahead, Stephen.
Okay, hi, Miriana. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you again. Very quickly, the new party of Vannacci that is called National Future, Futuro Nazionale, was founded this last month, and nowadays, supposedly, according to different polls, could have around 6% of votes, but other new polls give him also something more. The voters came from, until now, for what we understand, mostly former voters of Brothers of Italy and mostly the Salvini League. And then obviously someone also from abstentionism. I think it's important to point out that in the last election, 2022, political election in Italy, there was the record of abstentionism, close to 40% of voters. So it's something quite new in Italy, bigger than before. And so it's possible that also Vannacci could find some voters there. Mostly seems to be men's, because around also the discourse and the narratives that Vannacci use mostly are culture wars. So against gender ideology, against feminism, LGBTQ plus lobby, he used these kind of ideas. But then there's other two issues that I think is important. The first one is immigration. He explicitly stand for remigration, quoting Martin Sellner. And then the issue of the war between Russia and Ukraine, criticizing the help to Ukraine that, as we know, Meloni finally stand for, and a new approach to Russia. It's important also to say that the position of League, the party of Matteo Salvini, in the moment in the government with Meloni, was always critical to the aid, economic and military, mostly aid to Ukraine, and try to maintain a relation with Russia. So going to your question quickly and try to answer, I think that first, Meloni in the last 4 years of government, the government started in October 2022, she didn't achieve the results economic mostly that she wait for. Economy in Italy is more or less in the best results of Europe. Nothing compared, for example, to Spain. The economy is growing 0.2, 0.5 maximum each year. So this is one point. The inflation is very high. So there's a sentiment, a resentment in the population that can bring some voters to change the position inside the right, not from one bloc to another, from the right to the left or from the left to the right, mostly inside the two blocks. The conservative or the progressist. And so we can see that there is a little space for a new party that could be maybe bigger. Then I think it's important to point out that Italy is one of the countries with the most higher level of distrust and anti-politics or anti-establishment sentiment. So nowadays, Meloni, but also Salvini, they are perceived until some point as establishment. And so Vannacci can use also this. Third point related also to the other two is the issue of migration. It's true that Meloni used a lot the issue of migration also from the government. He approved new law. He could create this center for migrants in Albania that finally he sell this as a victory because also European Union finally accept this as a innovative model for all Europe. But it's true that the problem was not solved, as Meloni explained before winning the election. So the perception of a lot of people in the streets, conservative voters, is that more or less nothing changed. So Vannacci used also this issue, attacking Meloni and Salvini, saying that your promise continue to be promise. I will do what I say instead of you. And then there is other two elements, more political, that I think are really important. First, related to Vannacci. Vannacci had political space thanks to Salvini, that present him as a candidate in the European election of 2024. Giving him a lot of visibility and also of money after being elected in Brussels and Strasbourg. Second, as a vice secretary of the League. And Vannacci, at the beginning of this year, left the party and founded a new party, and so some deputies that were before with Salvini to create a little group in the Italian parliament. So the errors of Salvini related to the political career of Vannacci are important, but also the errors of Salvini since 2019, when he break the relation with Five Star Movement, that in that moment they shared the government. Salvini, since that moment, 34% of the voters of the European election 2019, he continued to lose voters until now, that is around 5%. And the second point, and I close here, hoping that I could answer to all your interesting question, Miriana, is the defeat of the government in March this year in the referendum that Meloni government proposed and imposed about a reform on a constitutional reform on the justice. That defeat created the first real moment, difficult moment for Meloni after 2022. Until the beginning of this year, Meloni seemed to be strong, accepted international, with very good connection with Brussels, with until some point good connection with the US, with Biden first, with Trump in the first year, with tension, it's true, but not like today. So was like Meloni seems to be difficult to defeat. And the defeat in March with 13 million voters in Italy that voted against the reform proposed for Meloni was something that Meloni was like a shock, a political and psychological shock. It's not so strange to understand also the moment when Vannacci founded the party. It was just after the defeat of the government in the referendum.
And
and 1 year before the election.
Excuse me, does this mean that Vannacci is to the right of Meloni, more radical, or it is just that he's filling the space that was left, that is being left by Meloni?
It's a good question. I think it's not easy to answer. Nowadays, taking a look at the discourses of Vannacci seems to be quite clear that he's more on the right than Meloni. But if we take a look of what Meloni wrote, said uh, 10 years ago, when she was not in the government, the books, the interview of Meloni, the meetings, political meetings, etc., or post in the social networks, there's not such a difference. There's not such a difference.
So
Remember
she
that
did become more moderate once in the government.
pragmatic, not moderate. I don't think that Meloni is more moderate. I think that is more pragmatic, mostly outside Italy. So in international relations, so the relation with Brussels and, well, with Washington, that nowadays is quite difficult to understand how you can have good relation with Washington. But was that the point? Because Meloni understands that if she wants to stay in the government in Italy, she should not do what Salvini did in 2018, 2019. So create a crisis with Brussels about the Italian economics and the Italian debts. We know that is an important issue for Italy, debt, and for Europe, and then not created strong crisis with Washington. And in fact, Meloni had a good relation with Biden, and the aid of Italy to Ukraine explained that. So I think that is the point. I want to say, I want also to say very quickly a last point that is also outside Italy. Until 5 years ago, more or less, there was, in my opinion, two strategy in the global far right to reach the power. To saying simply, the one is the de-demonization, de-diabolization, the strategy used by Le Pen, Marine, and also finally by Meloni. Seems to be less radical, less extremist, to try to catch more voters in the center right. But in the last years, we have saw that there is another strategy that is a winning formula, if we want, that is to seems completely extremist, not try to hide anything of your extremism. Let's think on Trump, on Milei, De La Espriella, but also things on Vox. That is clearly with no red line in the discourse of the party. So what I want to say with that, I think that the de-diabolization strategy is not so much a winning formula nowadays, and we can see in our context, not only in the Italian, but also in the Spanish, if you want, but also in Latin and North America, there is this strategy that is a winning formula nowadays, to say exactly everything very extremist, to try to winning the vote of in the election.
Well, let me just go very briefly to Spain. The time is running since you mentioned Vox. I usually say that many Europeans visit Spain, where you live, on holiday without following its politics closely. Recently, Spain's socialist prime minister, Pedro Sanchez, has become one of the most prominent figures on the European central left. I'm speaking internationally, not internally, where corruption scandals are undermining the government. At the same time, we have the far-right party Vox that is becoming increasingly radical. For example, Vox MP Rocío de Mer has recently said, what we say is that if we arrive in government, we are willing to end open door policies and we will carry out mass deportations. What does Vox offer that other parties do not offer, Stephen? But please be a bit...
briefly. Short. Yeah. A radical position that could not offer until some point the mainstream right, the popular party.
Give us a few examples.
About, for example, what you quoted about immigration. Popular Party was and is more or less in a position that, okay, the migrants are too much, we should try to control or solve this issue, try to find a better solution. We are not against migrants, but they are too much. Vox say we should deport them, like Trump, or like Sellner with remigration. This is the discourse, the narrative of Vox. It's possible to do that. Obviously not in any case. but they offer this. So they offer this image to rebuild an order of the past with this idea of nostalgia that is related to security issue, for example, to traditional values as family, is the same slogan of Trump that is very winning as a slogan. Make America great again. Make Spain great again was the first slogan of Vox 10 years ago. This is the idea finally that Vox can use. Then there is another important point that is contextual, that is the political crisis that Spain is living since 15 years. Since just after the beginning of the economic crisis of 2008, the territorial crisis with Catalonia, the political crisis related to the crisis of the big two parties, Socialist and Popular People's Party, that until 15 years ago was like a system quite similar to the British one, with two main party with absolute majority. This doesn't exist anymore. And then the corruption scandal. Corruption scandal, pay attention, is not only, as you can see maybe in the front page of a lot of newspaper related to Socialist Party. Let's see also this denounces, brings to sentences or not, but is related strongly to People's Party, with a lot of sentences related to that. So in the conservative voters, and I close my intervention here, you have a party that say, we are not corrupted as the People's Party. We are new and we are clear in our proposal. We will do what we offer to you, and we will solve some of this problem. And then I think that is a last point that is very important, that is that the mainstream right party, in the case of Spain, People's Party, couldn't and didn't try to put a clear red line in front of the extreme right, and finally accepted, as more or less everywhere, the discourses and the narratives to try to not losing votes on the right. So finally, it's like a legitimization of the discourses of Vox. And so finally, people, a lot of voters inside the conservative voters, could think, well, between the original and the copy, what I should choose? I prefer the original Vox. They are more clear. They are not maybe corrupted, and not the People's Party that is not clear what they think. So I don't know if I answer you, because are very interesting and complex question, but there is maybe some elements to think about it.
Thank you so much. And I will go back and we'll go back to you. Now, Carolina, Law and Justice Party has traditionally been described as far-right party. Did PiS become more moderate while it was in the government? If not, why has Konfederacja as a radical right emerged as a significant political force? And what do they advocate that PiS doesn't? Let me just remind one thing, that in 2019, when Konfederacja first ran for the European Parliament, Sławomir Mencen famously declared, "We don't want Jews, homosexuals, abortion, taxes, or the European Union." Is this what they stand for? Have they changed? Or this is what distinguishes them? Because I think that also, how can you be against abortion in a country where there is no abortion? Just to give an example. Carolina, please go ahead and explain to us the Polish radical right in a country where most immigrants come from Ukraine and not from non-European countries.
Thank you, Mirjana. I'm really happy to be here. And about the Polish far and radical right. So to understand the Polish far and radical right scene, I think it's important to distinguish between three, at the moment, actors that together enjoy around half of the Polish voters support. To be specific, at the moment, it's 48%. So the three parties together, 48% of Polish support. So the dominant force is still the Law and Justice, PiS, that used to govern for 8 years, since 2015 to 2023. And to its right, there stand two competing formations, two Konfederacjas, two. The first one, the original one that you mentioned with Sławomir Mencen and his originally claimed Konfederacja's 5 or Mencen's 5. I will be calling it Konfederacja, just Konfederacja. They now enjoy around 13 of Polish voters, 13% of Polish voters support. They are nationalist, economically libertarian, ideologically conservative, anti-Ukrainian party that is supported mostly by young people, especially men. Their support consists in 75% of men, and by entrepreneurs. And to illustrate their conservatism, one of the Konfederacja leaders, so the already mentioned Sławomir Mencen, once said that he would like to make marriage legally indissoluble, so you cannot divorce. But later he explained that actually this idea is a part of Konfederacja's libertarian agenda. So it is just an option. You can choose to have such a marriage. You can choose to have a normal marriage. So it's very adaptable to the needs of the electorate. So there is also the second Konfederacja. At the moment, it's the most radical right, sometimes verging extreme right, and it's Konfederacja of the Polish crown. And for the sake of simplicity, I will be calling it the crown instead of Konfederacja, because otherwise we would go crazy. So the crown has been set up by Grzegorz Braun. It is Grzegorz Braun's breakaway party. And it enjoys now 8% of support, and it pushes even further the boundaries of acceptable public political discourse, particularly through a very explicit, stronger than PiS and stronger than Konfederacja anti-Ukrainism. Strong anti-abortion rhetoric.
Excuse me, but abortion is forbidden in Poland.
Yes, but still, it's the issue that is very much alive and very much promoted by all the far/radical right parties, all three of them. So they are trying to entrench it, to delete it completely, because now it's actually still possible in two cases. But I will come back because I would like to show you how is it used. So this is this anti-abortionism by the crown, and also not only by rhetoric, but also by symbolic actions. So maybe you remember that Grzegorz Braun used a fire extinguisher to put out candles on a menorah at a Hanukkah event hosted by the Polish parliament. But in terms of anti-abortion symbolic actions, infamously, he stormed the hospital to confront a gynecologist, Dr. Gisela Jagielska, who had performed a medically justified late-term abortion, and he was claiming that he was carrying out a citizen's arrest. And as for anti-Ukrainism, he is, for example, removing Ukrainian flags from events that are being organized, for example, in demonstration of Poland's solidarity with Ukraine. And also his party belongs to the broad ecosystem of who sometimes are being called Pokemons. So Pokemons are fringe media, nationalist influencers, conspiracy channels of pathos streamers who eagerly redistribute. Actually, they redistribute his agenda and his content. They are also kind of probably influencing him, inspiring him. So a recent example is that his comrade, a pathos streamer, Martin Rolla, it was it's a fresh thing of 2 weeks. He published recently an anti-Semitic book, Garbate Nosy. So trying to translate it to be still more or less understood in English, Hooked Noses, the inside story of the Judaization, with a foreword, of course, of Grzegorz Braun himself. And bookshops are actually banning the sale of the book, which is also anti-Semitic in the title and cover, which both are invoking the Nazi stereotype of this hooked Jewish nose. And it's actually promoting the conspiracy theory that Poland is supposedly governed by an ongoing Judaization. By the way, Grzegorz Braun himself denies the existence of gas chambers at Auschwitz. He not once said that Auschwitz with gas chambers is a fake. So this is the more or less the context of.
Well, the context is that he has 8%. And then the others, less radicals, have 13%, which makes also almost 21%. So is this what...
But altogether, 50%.
But altogether, 50.
48, to be specific, together with PiS. Because many of the claims, at the moment, PiS is sharing many of the claims, those taboo-breaking claims, with Konfederacja. And Grzegorz Braun's Crown Party is actually adding some fringe right agenda to that, especially excelling in this anti-Semitism, but also in this very symbolic, but also very publicized, mediatized actions. You know about this anti-Semitic Hanukkah event. The media all around the world were writing. The Guardian, the Financial Times, everyone. So what he is different from Konfederacja and PiS is that he's not excelling and not focusing on social media communication. He is focusing on gathering visibility by such shows. He used to be the film director. So now he's using also this knowledge to do political taboo-breaking performance. This is how he's gaining not only visibility, but also popularity.
Thank you. Well, very uplifting. Nina, can I turn to you? As Nina and I spoke the other day about radicalization of the Austrian FPÖ party that is number one in the intention to vote right now, Nina said to me, and she's been covering the Freedom Party, and she wrote a book about it she's been covering for a long time, that only 8 years ago, she started following Martin Sellner. And I would like to start with this. Why it was only 8 years ago that you took him seriously? Should we take him seriously in a sense that his ideas seem to spread around Europe? Nina, please, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning. And I have to excuse myself. My laptop collapsed this morning. We have like about 39 to 40 degrees in Vienna right now. So I guess it's because of the heat. So I have to connect via my cell phone. I hope you can hear me well. And that's why the picture is so shaky, because I have to hold my phone in my hand. In Austria, we have the far-right party with the longest history. So the Freedom Party was founded 70 years ago. They had a big celebration last weekend in Vienna, in the center. It was founded 70 years ago by, at that time, former high-ranking Nazis, Austrian Nazis, and it has a very, very, let me say, eventful history ever since, like with very short periods of being a liberal party. And in the last years, since Herbert Kickl took over the party in 2019, it radicalized again. About Martin Sellner, I have been following the identitarian movement for a longer period, but if I think back, they first came to my attention in the early 2010s. For example, in 2013, they attacked or they disturbed a multicultural dance event for children. And in 2014, they splashed fake blood at a theater event at the Wiener Festwochen, which is a very important theater event in summer in Vienna. And it was a theater play with refugees on stage and even kids in the audience. So they came there and really shocked people. So I did follow Martin Sellner, and I did look after what he and his friends are doing. But for a long time, I still do report about this group with big restraints. Like for a long time, I even avoided using the term identitarians to describe them. Instead, I simply described them as what they were at the time. They were a far-right splinter group. And why did I do this? Because I didn't want to give them a bigger platform with my reporting. And because that was exactly what they were for a long time ago. They were a small, insignificant splinter group. There was a hardcore core of them, like a group about like maybe 20 to 30 people, and perhaps about 60 to 80 right-wing extremists attached to them. So the key question for many years for me was in my reporting, what form and intensity of reporting informs the public, and what kind of reporting helps groups like the identitarians to grow even larger. And I'm pretty convinced that Martin Sellner and his far-right friends are, to a large extent, a product of the media, of social media. Like social media is something we can maybe talk about, because that really helps Sellner and to bring his ideas into a bigger public. But also the traditional media, even the critical independent media, help Sellner. And I would say that people like Martin Sellner are media professionals. So it was absolutely okay that Correctiv did this big coverage of the meeting in Potsdam in 2023, where Sellner presented his so-called remigration plans, which I would prefer to describe as plans for unlawful mass deportation. But you can see what happened afterwards. Today, we're three years later, this far-right battle word remigration has gained widespread acceptance and is also being used now, at least in Austria, in traditional, not far-right media, and it's getting a term like any other. And I think that was exactly what Sellner wanted. And that's what we need to reflect on, like the media needs to reflect on. And that's the answer why I did focus on Sellner and his gang, but I did not always write everything he did.
Well, First of all, I ask the audience to prepare questions. You can do it in the chat, or you just raise your hand and ask a live question. I want to ask all three of you very briefly. Is there this moment or an idea that is the border when you say that now this is extreme right or radical right? Now it is becoming mainstream, or there is no more red line. You can say anything and everything goes mainstream, as Nina says, if media reports it. Let's start with you, Nina.
Talking about red lines in Austria, I mean, I don't see many anymore. I mean, Mr. Kickl, the head of the Freedom Party, when he was Minister of the Interior, he even questioned the European Convention on Human Rights. So until that point, I thought that's something we don't have to talk about. At the moment, the Freedom Party just published a new song called Remigration Song. And it goes like Remigration, sha la 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 la. And they try to turn it into a summer hit. So I would say that would have been impossible like 5 years ago. And now...
Let me just ask you one thing, Nina. I live in Vienna. And I didn't know about it. Is it because I read the wrong media, or this song is only spread through the right wing?
No, it was actually. I mean, it was everywhere in social media. Maybe because you're not so much on, I don't know, Twitter and like X or Insta. But it was also like traditional media wrote about it.
Okay.
And that's the problem we have. I mean, we can't say we don't like what they're doing, so we're not covering it. I mean, that's not journalism, that's politics. But on the other hand, the more we write about things like the Freedom Party has now a new remigration song, the more normal it gets. The more people get used to it. I mean, that's the thing. I would say that's also the reason why Mr. Kickl questioned the European Convention on Human Rights. Like next day, he said, "Oh, the media misunderstood me. It's always the media. They don't like me," and would never, ever, ever do this. But he did it. He said it, and he just. It was the first time that a politician gave people the idea of, "Oh, we can just kill the Human Rights Convention." So he put it in the brains of the people. Then he said, "Oh, no, sorry, just a misunderstanding." But it was already in the brains of the people, and that's what they want. So next time he says it, there will be no big rumor about it. It's just getting normal, the normalization.
Carolina, what is your thought about it?
So after what you mentioned in the beginning, after what Sławomir mentioned was claiming, preaching in 2019. So as you mentioned, no Jews, no homosexuals, no abortion, no taxes, no European Union. What else would we like to see as a red line? So since then they are quite destroyed, but we know that first there is speech, language, and then there comes the time for actions. So one of the Konfederacyja's politicians, but also spin doctors at the same time, told me that there's no reward for moderation or common sense, but there's the reward for taking down a leftist. So that's why they are doing it. It just pays. And there is this researcher, Ruf Wodak, who several years ago already wrote a book on post-shame era. I really like her term. And this term, and really we are living in such times. There is no shame anymore. We can just say or do anything in Poland too, and it is only for the political gain and for the voters who actually are also accepting more and more the violating the rules and feeling emboldened to do the same. When you are asking about the red lines, I thought that actually instead of treating some taboos as red lines, fringe politics are inspiring more mainstream politics to acquire the taboo topics into their discourse. So this is how it works. This is how this mainstreaming works. And also, as I wanted to mention the results of my own research on the Polish Sejm, Polish Parliament language. So actually, within the last 10 years, there was a fourfold rise in the use of aggressive rhetoric, including hate speech and vulgar words, 4 times more than in 2014 now. I don't know if I can say something more about the sociological research by parties, not by me, but by the parties. Peace told me that because I asked why there is so much mainstreaming and acceptance of anti-immigrant, anti-refugee and anti-immigrant rhetoric. And they explained to me that in Poland, long ago, leaders used to dictate political topics and attitudes. But since 2015, so since peace got to power, most of politics started to be dictated by the sociological research. Not only the opinion polls, but also by all these focus groups. So actually, all the statements of political parties are not only created but also tested in focus groups. And actually, not only the topics, but also the language, also the attitude that is being shown. I'm not saying that Grzegorz Braun is also doing that, but he is seeing what pays, and the fringe rhetoric and breaking taboos is pays.
Thank you so much. I have a question that in the chat that I will ask Stephen. It is from Alida Bracic. She is an independent consultant living in Vienna. She writes, thank you all, very interesting, but Trump and EU minds alike, I fear that we are seeing fewer and fewer red lines. In your view, what is the way to respond to this? Hard data and common sense, example about migration, do not seem to help. Do we have any tool or toolkit? I know, Stephen, that you have, that even in one of your books, you offer some toolkits. What is
some suggestion, because it's like the $1 million question, this one. First, I'm agree with Carolina and Nina. I think that the mainstreamization of extremism is a reality. Is a reality more or less in all Europe and in all North and South America. And a little before answering quickly, Mirjana, to this question related to Sellner, I want only to remember that last summer, a newspaper in Italy, La Verità, that is close to the Meloni government, sell to their readers the book of Sellner translated to Italian, Remigration, explaining that is an interesting book. Maybe we are not agree, but we need to take in account this proposition. So talking about the role of the media and the mainstreamization of extremism presented as something acceptable, I think is important. So to answering Alida question, seems to be that hard data means nothing to the people that can vote for this party. I think in any case that fact-checking and hard data by the media is important, and by scholars, we need to do that. We should continue to do that, but it's not enough. It's not working. It's not working. I think that the main point here is to work on education in the long durée, because we are working for the next generation. So about values, about programming school, etc., etc. And then I think the other important issue is related to internet and the social network. We need to democratize the digital space. That is something that we didn't do until now. Digital space is in the hand of the new robber barons of 21st century. They do what they want. Things on Elon Musk, but not only to him, things on the property of the data, Palantir and Peter Thiel, vigilance, security, etc. But the main topic here is to regulate and democratize the digital space, where all these kind of discourses, as for example, also the video that Nina explained before about the song of remigration, Vannacci did something similar in Italy in the last week, a song about remigration that is now being listened a lot, seems to be, by the number that we have. So the point is that, and it's not pay attention, is not censorship, is defending democratic values and a democratic debate. Not everything should be permitted and allowed, as in the street. If I insult people in my work, I can be denounced. Why in the internet is so difficult to try to put some rules that we should accept it as Democrats in our society is a complex issue, but I think we need to move forward and faster to try to solve this problem. And is not the only answer to Alida question. I think we need an holistic way to answer to that. But one of the points I think is also that.
Thank you, Stephen. I have another question. Alexander Rajewski, I think he's from the Polish press agency. What makes far-right parties so effective at reaching voters who aren't interested in politics and do not follow current political affairs or the news? Nina, what do you think?
So the biggest question at the end, well, I don't think that there is one single answer to that. But I mean, one thing is like this emotional part of it. You know, these populists, they have really simple, easy answers to very complex questions. It's always like us and them. Everything is us and them. And it's kind of, I think it's a good feeling to know, like, okay, there's a problem, kick the migrants out. It's very uncomplex and easy to understand, and you can put all your anger into this solution. I mean, it will never work like that, because if we would do what Mr. Sellner proposes in Austria, we could close all our hospitals and public transports, and I mean, it's just crazy. But it sounds easy, and I think it gives people who are in a not so good situation the feeling of, hey, we can do something, we can solve this problem. And I think it's also the weakness of the other parties, of the democratic parties, that helps. It's social media. I mean, for Austria, I can say that the Freedom Party were the first on social media, and they are very, very, very active, and they dominate parts of social media like Telegram, but also on X. I mean, it's people like Elon Musk helping them. And I think it's also because the world is not a good place at the moment. So people fear the future. And in Austria, like for a long time, since the 1990s, the other parties like the Social Democrats, but also the media said, oh, it's this poor, male, unemployed guy who's the typical voter for the Freedom Party. And that's true for some extent, but nowadays it's more, you don't have to be on the bottom of society to vote for the Freedom Party. It's more like people, middle-class people who are afraid of losing what they have, and especially for their kids. So if I go to a rally from the Freedom Party and I talk to people, they're like supporters. they're like really normal people, having their job, having a flat for rent, or maybe they have a small house or a bigger house, and they have a car and they have everything, and they're afraid of somebody coming and taking it away, taking the car away, and they live on the countryside and they're afraid they can't move anymore because the Freedom Party tells them the European Union wants them to take their car. And so there's lots of fear in society. And I mean, fear is always the best that can happen to parties like the Freedom Party.
I have a last question for all three of you, and that is, Nina mentioned it, that the traditional parties do not have replies or do not offer this security, or this at least rhetorical security that the far right offers. My question is, why is it, and really brief answer, that the traditional social democrats or the center of right parties do not have the narrative? Why can't they offer an alternative narrative in comparison to the easy narrative of the far right? Karolina?
Actually, in Poland, I would say that the center parties, for example, now the governing Civic Coalition, take an active role in mainstreaming of far and radical right agenda. Instead of being bold and standing for their own tenets, they are copy-pasting many of the narratives, many of the sentiments of the far and radical right, like, for example, nationalism, anti-Ukrainian, using also anti-Ukrainian sentiment. They just fear being pro-European Union and defending European Union because they see they don't want other voters to go away towards the fringes. They are also scared to talk about positively
Are
about
you including
Ukraine.
Donald Tusk in this or
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
yes, I am. For example, we had this International Ukraine Recovery Conference in Poland, in Gdańsk, last Thursday and Friday. And almost no one knew that it was happening because it is co-organized by Ukraine and also supported by the European Union. So it's nothing. So according to the government, there was probably nothing to be proud of in the front of their electorate. So they actually didn't actively promote this success of Poland having such an important international business conference in our country. This is just a very recent example. So they are also seeing the same sociological research that I was quoting from Peace, and they see that it doesn't pay so much to offer more constructive and positive agenda. Yes, I have a lot to say, but
I see that we shall have another meeting because now, Nina, why is it so difficult for social democrats and the other center parties in Austria to offer a narrative that can be attractive and simple and emotional? Just very briefly.
I don't know. I mean, we just had the elections in Graz, which is the second biggest city in Austria. And the election was won by a communist mayor, even though communism doesn't have any grounds in Austria. I mean, the Communist Party was for many, many centuries and many years in Austria just didn't exist, but still this one woman in Graz just gained, I think, 35 point something. So, and I also remember in 2015 when all these refugees from Afghanistan and Syria were coming to Austria, we had local elections in Vienna, and at that time, Mayor of Vienna, Michael Häupl, he just said, I mean, I stand for humanity, I stand for human rights, and there have to be rules. But if somebody knocks on the door of Vienna and says, please help me, we won't send these people away. And he won the election. Maybe it's just stand for what you are and don't try to copy the right-wing parties. I mean, that's what's happening, what happened too many times in Austria, that, like, you know, the Freedom Party makes a very extremist proposal, like concerning migration or asylum. And at the beginning, all the other parties said, oh, that's really, really bad. And 2-3 months later, they started coping. And that always helped the far right. And still, that didn't change their politics. So maybe that would be just stand for what you are and don't pretend you're the better radicalist.
Thank you. Stephen?
Very quickly, I think that traditional parties, not only in Italy and in Spain, they are paying the defeat of neoliberalism, the defeat of neoliberalism model. I want to say both of them, center right and center left, some years ago, in the 90s, they accepted the new world order based on globalization, neoliberalism, and expansion of liberal democracy. After 2008, that vision of the world was defeated, was entering a strong crisis. And so they have not a new narrative to offer after the errors and the defeat of this proposal. So they are like under the ruins of neoliberalism, as Wendy Brown pointed out. And then I think there is another point that is very important, that is the difficult, also maybe Carolina said something about that before, to talk about the future with hope. We are living in a world with wars, maybe nuclear wars, with the climate change, etc., 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 with pandemias as the last one and maybe new one, etc. So it's difficult to create a narrative in politics to talk in an optimistic or maybe hopeful way about the future. And the traditional parties, they are paying their own errors. I close also with a bit of hope, because if not, seems to be that there is not. Zoran Mamdani in New York talking about real things and giving hope to people won the election. I don't know if Zoran Mamdani could finally reach what he proposed, but I think give us a bit of hope, seeing that if there is someone in the left that's is saying something leftist, also to have public transport that are free, to talk about education, to health, to something that is related about housing, something related to all of us and working class and middle class mostly. Maybe there is a new kind of narratives that could change this loop of extremism in which we are, and that we explain more or less today, I think, in this session.
Thank you all. And what I understand from what you're saying, Stephen, is that everything comes from the US. We have the extreme right ideas, and now we think that Mamdani is the solution. I think we shall close here. I thank you for explaining so well the different local contexts, and we shall definitely continue this discussion, because this is the discussion that is the topics that are shaping and influencing the future of Europe. Thank you so much, and until soon, we shall continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.